Hello and welcome back to our 7th and final preliminary episode, Season 1 of The Peel. I am your host, Spood. As always, joining me for the podcast is...
It's Cabral! Hello! I'm actually very excited for this episode. We've been going back and forth a lot and talking about what we wanted to talk about, because this is, as you heard Spood say a bit ago, our last preliminary episode of The Peel. We had set an idea from the beginning when we made The Peel on how much we wanted to talk about before wrapping it all up. We didn't want this to be an indefinite production podcast. We didn't want to keep this going or to be like, I don't know, just kind of, we made specific topics and specific subjects to talk about for these episodes. And we want to wrap that up with this one, where we're going to go into some broader strokes here and there, but we've got some really fun ideas to talk about today. But yeah.
Yeah, we don't want the show to just kind of limp on in perpetuity. We want to make sure that everything we're putting on the podcast, or on the Patreon, we're giving 110% effort, and I think we have very much covered all of the primary points in the Team 5 production cycle. Just as a quick recap, Episode 1, we talked about writing and sort of the foundations of the project. In Episode 2, we talked about art. Episode 3 was about music. Episode 4 was about sound design.
Hold on a second. Episode 3 was our VA stuff.
Sorry, okay, Episode 3 was about voice acting. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Neville. Episode 3 was about
That's
voice
all
acting.
right. Episode 4 was music. Episode 5 was sound design.
Yeah.
Yes, and then that leaves 6 to be...
No, Episode 6 was the last one. That was editing. And so
yes,
Episode 7 is the last one that we're doing. And it's actually also the 1-year anniversary of us uploading the very first episode of The Peel. That was November 30th, 2023. And now it is November 30th, 2024. It's actually the 21st, but, we're posting it on the 30th.
Yeah. We totally planned that as well.
We knew relatively in advance, but enough so that we would say that we planned it. I don't know, it seems fair.
No, that's completely fair. Today is talk about, I guess just, why we made The Peel.
Today we're tying a bow on everything. We're going to talk about why we made The Peel, what we've done in the last year, and kind of give a top-down, as best as we can without spoiling anything. We want to talk about the bones of the show and some of the drier stuff. Specifically, I think mostly we're going to be focused on marketing and team building and things like that. But this episode, at this point, if you watched all episodes of The Peel, in theory, this should give you not only insight into Team 5's production cycle, but if it was something that interested in, you could theoretically use the knowledge that you gained from these episodes to have a starting point for making your own similar kind of project. We tried to be pretty thorough and all-encompassing. We do, software lists, hardware lists. We've gone over a lot of... it's all been through the lens of Team 5 as a project, but we've tried to generalize the advice as best as we can, and we'll have some final words on that at the end of this podcast. But for now, I think we're just going to get into talking about Team 5, huh?
Team 5, Team 5, Team 5. Absolutely. One of the things I want to bring up real quick, the amount of intention and time we took to plan everything out is one of the biggest points of why Team 5 is where it is. The amount of planning, the amount of thinking, especially with the marketing stuff, right? We spent a lot of time discussing when do we want to release it, what do we want to talk about when making a YouTube channel, what do we want to make for the YouTube channel, when making a Patreon, what do we want to make for the Patreon. I think that's one of the first points to bring up with Team 5 and making a production is the amount of pre-planning we did defined everything that you see and look at with Team 5. From the thumbnails on the YouTube to the posts we're making, to the release schedule for The Peel as well as other Patreon release stuff, everything is on a schedule. We took a lot of time to painstakingly put all that together and be intentional with what we want to do and how we want to do it.
Yeah, I would honestly say that the biggest takeaway, even if you just blinked all of the other episodes of The Peel out of your mind, if there's one thing you should take away, in my opinion, if you want to make something like this, is that projects live and die by their organization. I think that was something that Lightning said when he came on and did his podcast, and I think that that is just literally at the core of it. You need to write everything down. Have schedules, have soft deadlines, have contingency plans, have strategies, have spreadsheets, have, like, communication ultimately is the most important thing, but I don't think can effectively communicate. My goodness, can't speak today. Whoa! Pardon me. Communication, ironically, is the most important thing, and to make sure everybody's on the same page, I really think documentation and organization is so, so important. And, even down to the topics that we cover on each episode of The Peel, including this one. I'm looking at a Google Doc right now that has all of the notes that we took ahead of time about, sort of the touch points that we wanted to go over while we were talking today. So, if nothing else, set up a Google Drive or like a personal file management system. Make sure you know where everything is, what everything is, and that you can explain it to somebody who's never seen it before.
Yeah, and this is, as we said before in other episodes, this is not our first time working on a production or a project. There's a lot of other elements we've brought in from experiences on other projects or like real life work. I've managed people. I've done some filming on location, some of the stuff before. You've worked on various other projects, Bood, where they've had some organization, and we've taken a lot of the elements of that and put that into this. So this took us time to do. This wasn't like out the gate we were ready to really do all this. Like, the project grew to an exponential level that we never expected, like, at all.
It's been a trial by fire. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to learn on the job with this kind of stuff, and it's always going to be changing. There's absolutely, we're going to come back in 5 or 10 years, presuming that we keep working on similar projects, and we're going to look back at Team 5 and think, wow, there's 1,000,001 things that we would have changed. And we already have some of those opinions, which we'll get into later. But, it's an evolving understanding of the most effective way to produce something like this. And even if you crack the code and find the perfect way to run Team 5, might not be the perfect way to run a different project.
Yeah. And the thing is like, it all takes time. The amount of time we spent pre-planning Team 5 and, like, thinking about all the different aspects. So we sat down, we did the outlines first and foremost. And we're going to retread some ground we've talked about in the other Peel episodes. So kind of expect that here and there. We're going to try and keep it a little fresher, but we're probably going to still touch back on points we've made in other episodes. But we outlined, planned everything out, talked about it, and then went into script writing. And then did not want to start any production till the script was done. That takes time. It took, I don't know, in total to make the entirety of the script with the outlining process, what, a year?
Something like
8
that.
months?
I mean, it wasn't like persistently worked on. We started it in midway through like 2020 was when we started doing the outlining, and then around the end of 2021 was when we finished the script, which I think we started writing proper in like September of 2021. So I think
something like that,
beginning to end, pretty consistently working on it. It took like 3-ish months to get the script done. And we even still tweaked it after. I mean, that's not to say that like we wanted to tweak it after, but there were, we redid the ending, notably. We tweaked some stuff in that final episode. Like, we retooled one of the jokes. There were a few dialogue changes to kind of help it flow smoother, and that was stuff that we learned when we were doing the table reads, and the VAs were like...
Well, that and the editing process, too.
Yeah, and the editing process, absolutely. Like, timing is important, and clarity is important, and there's just like so many little things. Like, for example, okay, like on an artistic level, there's a scene in chapter 3 where originally we had one line from Jolteon. They're speaking to, and I don't want to spoil anything, but they're in a lighthouse.
Yeah, because we're not at the 15-minute mark yet.
We're not at the 15-minute mark, but very generically speaking, they're in a lighthouse. They're speaking to somebody in the lighthouse, and you've got Flareon and Umbreon talking to this character. And originally we had one line from Jolteon. And when Mytho was working on storyboarding that scene, she came back and she said, like, hey, can we just have Umbreon say this line so I don't have to put Jolteon standing next to them saying nothing the whole time, It's like one less character in the mix, and makes a lot more sense and it flows a lot smoother. And that's something that, it's a lot easier to see that when you've got somebody drawing it all out than when you're writing it, and it just makes sense to like get everybody involved in some regard, right? Like it makes less sense on an artistic level, and it saved a lot of time, even though it took a little more time to get that line.
Well, it also makes more sense from a story point as well for that episode and the characters and where they're at in the story.
Yeah, but it's a minor thing.
And it is absolutely a minor thing, but like it wasn't until because we got into a visual medium and it got brought up by someone else working on the project. And that is to say, the people you have working on your project have some of the best little ideas that just make the show happen too. And on top of that, Team 5 definitely blew up because if we're talking about the visual medium, Team 5 initially was going to be more audio drama, way less visuals. The idea originally was like a frame, a scene, like a drawing per like scene and kind of showing you what's happening. And that absolutely is no longer the case. It's far more cinematic. There's camera angles, there's pan shots, there's parallaxing shots, there's movement happening. The action sequences are like, it's really cool how it kind of built up from this idea of, well, a little visual, but the audio is going to tell the story. But now this show no longer can stand on its audio alone. There's so many visual cues and quiet moments that are highlighted only by visual that it no longer just stands to be an audio drama at this current stage.
Effectively, it is just an animatic. I mean, it's an animation with the keyframes gone. Or, I guess I should say with all the in-betweens gone and the keyframes remaining.
Yeah, all the in-betweens gone, yeah.
And it's great. I think it's a lot better for it. It took a lot longer for it. Let's not beat around the bush. This was, this project, we are on 3 years now of persistently working on it. And the earliest we expect to be done is another 9 months. So it's going to be pushing 4 years. That's an entire, like, bachelor's degree worth of work, on Team 5.
That is a child growing up and going to kindergarten kind of work.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it took a lot of time. There's an adage, I forget if I ever brought this up in a different episode of The Peel, but something that I liked a lot was something I read online where somebody was concerned, I think, about going to college. I forget the exact context of the post, but it was somebody saying, like, that's going to take 4 years. Like, that's such a long time. And somebody responded, the time will pass anyway. So, like, at the end of the 4 years, you either have a Team 5 or you don't. And the only difference is, like, whether you worked on it. But no matter what you choose to do, that 4 years is going to pass. So you might as well, right? And I think that was really helpful for me.
I really enjoy working on this project. Like, and it's like you said, like the 4 years were going to pass no matter what. And I always like having projects and stuff to work on and do. But this is, I genuinely believe, taking our skill level, our team building level of skill, and just push that up for us. And we really pushed the envelope because we were tired of being in part of projects that we mentioned before in other Peel episodes that kind of just fell apart. And this is the one where the end's almost in sight, actually. Like, we're at a point now where we're finalizing different aspects of the later half of the episodes. And we're just, like, almost there. There's so much that's been done and so much that's been made. And there's, like, a show to watch. Like, because at this point in time, the episodes are watchable. We have them in a form or a state where you can see all the episodes. Not done, but the fact that we can sit down and watch a show that we just made is something that I don't take into account sometimes. But when I think about it, it's really, really cool.
I think it's very important. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off if you were still going.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I basically wrapped up what I was going to
Well, I was going to segue that into, I think a big part of why that is a good thing and why it's important that we have that is that it is a morale booster. And you are not working with soulless automatons on your team. You are working with humans, like people, and they need to feel good and excited about the project that they're working on. And so you need to employ a very wide bag of tricks if you want to keep people engaged and working on your show. And one of the things that helps a lot is when you have a show that they can watch. And even if the latter half of the episodes are black and white, doodles with like very rough scratch audio, like they're still watchable. You can still watch the whole show and at the end of it be like, wow, I feel this way about that. And it's just one of a lot of little tricks that we have employed in the Team 5 like ecosystem to keep people engaged and motivated and excited. And I think it works, and I think it really pays dividends. And it sounds like it's one of the motivating factors for you, is that you can sit down and watch the whole show and say like, wow, that's, like 2 hours ish of content that's just like totally watchable.
Yeah, and it's also, not only do we do that, not only is that a motivator, but also that helped us refine the quality of the show, the writing in different aspects, right? We can have, when you have episode 1 and episode 9 at a watchable point, and you're still making it, it's like, hey, if we tweak this part in 1 and this part in 9, they can parallel match and you can get some symmetry or some story elements, right? And you can do that with it completed. But on top of that, we also have implemented on Discord a progress channel. I believe we've talked about it before and we've shown it on YouTube and stuff, but that was another really big thing. Just daily, anyone who's worked or done any Team 5, they get to go in the progress channel. They get to see their name up there. They get to see like what little aspect they did of the show and what got done on that whole day. And we have a whole channel just to scroll through of how much has been getting done since we started that whole thing.
Yeah, and you hear from people who are not necessarily that active in the Discord, like these sort of minor voice roles, or, people whose work was done like a really long time ago, or people who are otherwise engaged who can't actively contribute to the project. And it sounds like, you'll hear from people like, oh yeah, I check the progress channel every day. Like, I hear it go off. I always look forward to seeing it. And it does go every single day. And when we have a day where nobody works, you or me will sit down and do something just so that something gets done, on that given day. Even if it's small, it has to be something every single day. And it's a big motivator, not just for people who are working to see their names in there and to get their ping in there, but, random people who are on the team can come in and be like, wow, this project is awesome. It's getting a lot of work done, and you can tangibly see it. Like, Cabral did shading on Chapter 5 yesterday. And you can tangibly point to that. And you could go on the drive and you could find what he was working on. And you could check the shot log and see what he was assigned. And it's all there for people to double check and be like, wow, they're serious about doing this. And it's getting done.
Yeah. Now that we're rounding towards the 17-minute mark, we're going to enter the Patreons only. But I just want to send, because this is the last one for YouTube as well, just send a final send-off. Be like, if you want to check out the rest of this, head over to our Patreon. You can see it all for just $1 a month. So I want to say, YouTube, thanks for your support and everything. We'll see you later. This is the last appeal for YouTube part, but we're going to dive into the more nitty-gritty stuff now.
Oh, yeah. And the one last thing I will say for the YouTube audience, just to elaborate, because we kind of teased earlier, we probably will do more Peel episodes after the show comes out. And then we can actually talk about the spoilery aspects of it and get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of it. So this is not goodbye forever. But for now, for the pre-release episodes of The Peel, this is going to be our final entry. Thank you so much for your support, and we are looking forward to seeing you again very soon.